What are you looking at? I posted.
Yeah, you're posted by your screen that says you have permission to something.
I think you have permission to lead and design your best possible life, maybe? Is that what it says?
Design and lead the best life possible. That's cool. When you do that.
That is from a workshop I went to with some purple people, and they're talking about some of the things from Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic.
Oh.
One of the things she talks about, so it's Big Magic, creative living beyond fear. So right up my alley, the things that I take in, like I hit the gym for physical strength as well as mental strength, right?
Right.
But then like I go to books like this because it also helps with like that creative drive and, getting a little tune up, to help push through if I'm thinking nothing's good enough, like that imposter syndrome type, all those fears that come up when you're being creative, right? The whole book is urging people to like live their creative life kind of thing. And one of the things she goes is like, if you're waiting for permission here, you have it. And then so in this session, we're doing kind of like a little bit of a book club in a way, right? They pulled out that and said, okay, grab a Post-it and write yourself your permission slip that you need to hear kind of thing. And so I forgot what's up there. I can't see it from here either. So I'm like, what Post-it? I'm like, I don't know what you're trying to read. That was last week. And so this week I listened to that book. I don't think I had heard it before, but I'd heard her podcast. I think she had a podcast called Big Magic that kind of came out around the same time. And I think she had guests on. Yeah. So that was one of the things I did this week. Actually finished listening to it earlier today when I was in here moving stuff around. So, yeah.
Cool. I like it.
Welcome back to In Residence. I'm Keith.
And I'm Laura.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Keith.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, yeah. I just went on a little rant about a book I was reading, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
You did?
So it's on Audible and Kindle now in our library. So
I'll have to dig into it.
Yeah, it went pretty fast. So didn't quite realize how fast I went through it. But anyway, that's kind of where my brain is too this week.
Well, and it started because I saw a Post-it after you hit record up by your computer that said you have permission to design and lead the best life possible. And I really like that.
That's me giving myself permission to do that. Want to talk about permission slips?
Well, I mean, it is something that when I saw you have permission, that's the only thing I could see because I don't have my glasses on. And I'm actually surprised I can make that out with your handwriting and the distance.
Very artistic handwriting is how I like to call it.
I like that reframe.
That I'm very hard to cheat off of.
Yes. There's times where it's like, what is that?
I don't even know. I go back to look at my journal and I'm like, oh, like I either need a different pen or to actually concentrate while I'm writing.
Good thing the journal is just for you, right?
Exactly.
Going back to the Post-it, I think it's powerful to give yourself permission and to actually write that down because I think we forget we do have the ability to do that.
We already have.
But we hold ourselves back.
We already have permission. We don't need it from anybody, right?
Right.
And yet we're waiting. So, yeah. I need those little reminders. That's why reading Big Magic, creative living beyond fear, right? Mm-hmm. Let go of the fear of showing up and sharing your work. I always need those little tune-ups. And I gravitate towards that kind of writing.
So, have you engaged with a lot of Elizabeth Gilbert's work?
I don't know a ton of Elizabeth Gilbert's writing. I listened to Eat, Pray, Love a while ago, but I do know her work and I listened to her in interviews and on podcasts. The way she thinks and the way she talks about the creative act, and there's even stuff in some of the way she talks about vocation. She shared her thoughts in one of Seth's workshops. And so I've been exposed to her as a person, probably more than her writing, like her profession.
Yeah.
And like I've listened to her podcast or something too that she had years ago. Like I think I was sweeping the garage listening to it, and it was delightful. So
I've only really listened or read Eat, Pray, Love quite a while ago too. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, it's a bestseller for a reason.
yeah,
Right. I'm curious because thinking about how I felt about the lessons I learned from Eat, Pray, Love, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm going way back in like
yeah,
the Laura Wayback Machine,
yeah,
that she isn't happy with her life, right? Is struggling or has a bad relationship, and so decides to go to, is it Italy and India?
something like that.
That idea of healing and finding who you are and enjoying the simple things in life, I think is just really powerful. That's how I remember the lessons in that, of love fully, live life fully, you're worth it, discover you,
Yeah.
and live based on your terms.
The thing that's standing out to me the most from Big Magic is I think she does passion versus creativity, or no, passion versus curiosity. And she's like, I'm not
Mm.
really one to tell people to follow their passion because you might not even know what it is yet. And then that feels kind of oppressive. Whereas if you lean towards staying curious, that's a better way to move forward, and we've talked at length about the correlation between creativity and curiosity, right? And so it really clicked, and I think we had just maybe talked about that maybe the last time we were together. And so I was like, oh cool, she's talking about it here. I'm like, that's the synchronicity of it, that the curiosity keeps coming up, and it's just a great reminder for me to stay curious.
So the question I maybe had for you, because it sounds like you have engaged with more of her content, the lessons that came from, or the themes, what I remember, that feeling I had reading Eat, Pray, Love, like it was just really empowering of go and make the best life you can for you and you deserve it. And the post-it that I happened to just see over there, that theme really connects from that earlier work to giving yourself permission to do so. And I was just wondering, is that a theme through most of her work?
So in this one, for instance, kind of the hard working practicality, whether it's bartending or a server, having an income so that she then has the freedom to pursue her writing. And like that kind of practicality that I'm sure you've noticed in me,
Yeah.
uh, it's not quite as balanced. I lean a little more towards the practical versus the the practicality is so I can go on and be creative. The scales aren't quite balanced for me sometimes. I get bogged down in well, this is what I have to do, and then I'm too tired to do the thing that I was doing it for.
Right.
I mean, that's looking back kind of and seeing how maybe I start to feel that the oppressiveness of hindsight, and how maybe I squandered time, and then I start to I'm getting into the gap thinking versus like, well, but look at how far you are now, like so. And
Yeah.
I'm proving my point of why I go back to writing like hers. It rejuvenates me and reminds me that, like my post-it, I have permission to lead and design the best life for me, and that's probably going to be one in which I can be creative and lean into the different things that light me up. Not sure if I quite answered what you were asking.
You did. And maybe I think I am, it might have been a question that I asked that I feel like I kind of know the answer, even though my engagement with Big Magic is limited to a post-it note.
Right, and me talking about it.
And you talking about it. And this might sound weird, but I'm just going to say it. When I was growing up, I was supported in being creative and being who I wanted to be. And there was a part of me that believed that I could design the life that I wanted and go after the things that I wanted to go after, there's been this maybe thread for me that I think I have given myself permission, even from a fairly young age, to go for it. Maybe I'm not remembering that correctly because it's harder when you're in it. But looking back, I do feel like a lot of at least my internal self was like, go after that. You can do it. Just keep going. And I was going to ask you, did you feel that when you were growing up? Did you have that internal?
Did it feel different for me growing up? Yes. Yeah. I think I looked maybe to the creative arts as more of a solace. Obviously, grew up listening to lots of music, but I turned to like reading, writing, and music as an expression for sure. But it was also something I did a lot by myself, reading liner notes, reading the lyrics, listening to the music, analyzing it before I really knew that I was analyzing it. So I don't know, like, I don't know if I really had that like nudge from external forces to be creative, unless I was finding it. Like when I would see something like, say, on like MTV or VH1, like rock music or something, or at a concert, that I would feel that, and that would be kind of like the nudge to be like, oh, I want to do what they're doing.
Okay.
But nobody really cultivated it. It was kind of, I was left to my own devices in a way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, I think so. And I think it's good to note the idea that you can get to a place where you can support yourself in that creativity and designing your life in that way.
Yeah, creating a practice is how I think of it. Would I maybe be further along at different points if I was in more of an environment that curated that type of maybe exploration? Like, I was good at school, whereas when it came to my own free time, I don't think I exercised as much creativity and exploration. I just wasn't what I was used to, I think. And so back to Elizabeth Gilbert, when I hear somebody saying, you don't need to wait for somebody to tell you to do the thing you're thinking about, you have the permission to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that's right. What am I waiting for? Stop waiting.
Yeah.
Dive in and break it. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I broke the website. I'm not that mad about it. 5 years ago, I would have been furious and I probably would have been in a bad mood.
Mm-hmm.
I ruined it. How am I going to recover? It'll never be the same. Now it's like, well, it's not going to be the same, but now I have an opportunity to make it better. Something I've been meaning to do, but never really had the spark to make me actually act. That's another thing that came up like this last week with me, is like, I need to create mechanisms or triggers for myself to act.
Yeah.
She talks about how her mom was raised on a farm in Minnesota.
Did she really?
Rural Minnesota, right?
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, oh, I'm like just across the border from us in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew there was something that I could just sense.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like who helped form her, and that her mom always made her do the thing that she was resisting. Like, she talks about how she was very hesitant, like even about snow. She didn't want to go near the snow. It was like, you're afraid of the snow? All right, you're going to go shovel the snow. And so it's like exposure therapy, I think. I think that's what I was kind of trying to get at. Was she said at every turn, she made me do exactly what I dreaded most.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is kind of one of those things it's nudging her to get out of her comfort zone. What I'm trying to say is, I don't think I had so many nudges to get out of my comfort zone while I was growing up.
Okay.
Which is probably why I'm talking about growing my comfort zone as a middle-aged man. it's different than it, it's not like I'm struggling with it. It's just that it's still one of those things that it creeps up and I'm like, it's going to be okay, man. Just go explore, play, have fun. It's probably fixable.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to lean into that.
It's making me think of a couple things that I've heard this week. I was having a conversation and they said, oh, well, I don't want to really do that thing, but that probably means it's the right thing to do.
We talk about that.
Yeah. And I was just listening to Mel Robbins' book today, Let Them.
The let them theory.
The Let Them theory.
Yeah.
And she was saying the same thing. If you're thinking, I don't want to do that, or that's not what I want to do, and it's hard, it's probably the thing that you need to be doing.
That's a sign that, okay, maybe I need to make myself do that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what her mom did for her too. And yeah, that comes with a grain of salt, right? Like if something's very dangerous, take all the time you need, pull back, right? But when we're talking about these types of creative risks where we're feeling exposed, the more I can develop that muscle, the better off I'm going to be as I move forward. Not being so hesitant, I guess, to see what happens, when the stakes aren't super high.
Yeah.
They may feel like it, kind of like we talked about the other day. It can feel like a big risk, but okay, let's actually assess this. Oh, okay. Bodily injury, a big risk. Feeling a little embarrassed that I'm not good enough, we can work through that. Let's push through that. Let's build that muscle, right?
Yeah.
And see what we can really come up with.
Has there ever been a time, like a specific time, when you were like, I don't want to do this. This is going to be hard, but you knew it was the right thing to do and you did it anyway?
I mean, we might have talked about this before, but like the biggest thing that comes up aside from like having to call like a company to talk about a bill or a service not working.
You don't like doing that.
Like, who likes that, right? That almost always turns out okay. I usually get to talk to somebody that's really nice and they're like, how's the weather? If you can bridge a conversation and find common ground with anybody if you start talking about the weather, it's a great hack, right? Elevator talk, right? Like, oh, how's it going? Oh, it's going to be a chilly one today, whatever. Like putting yourself on the line when we were first dating, right? Things like that, where you're risking rejection. Those are the types of things that they're scary. I did it. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I went and knocked on your door and said, hey, I had a really nice time tonight. Just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Yeah.
After we'd already said goodnight to each other, it's just like, I'm just like, I chickened out. I didn't say the thing I meant to say. And I came down and I'm like, I really had a good night.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you know that. And why hold that back ever?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the types of things that if I had a better memory, if I had a better capture system, I might have a better memory. That's something else I've been working on this week too, by the way. Anyway, do you have something? You usually have better anecdotes like that at the fingertips.
Oh my goodness. I thought I was asking the questions.
Yeah. I mean, you go after life in a way that is inspiring to me.
Oh.
I mean, you've made several work transitions over the years.
I have.
Does that feel risky?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, because you never fully know what you're getting yourself into.
How different is the feeling of deciding to apply for a job versus waiting to hear if you got the job?
I say pretty calm for the most part. Deciding to apply, I will say there is a part that you can always exit out of the process at any time. And so it doesn't always feel like it's as much high stakes, because I've always been, I mean, we've talked about this, but I've always been pulled towards things for the most part, rather than trying to flee for the most part. mean, I guess I've had my moments. I've had my moments.
We all have.
We all have, right? I had an example and it kind of just fluttered away a little bit.
I mean, the most recent example of being a little uncertain and maybe a little terrified of like the ramifications of a choice was us getting an apartment 4 hours away.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're still early in that process, but there must have been others before that made that an easier choice to make. While it was a big decision, I don't think we waffled a whole lot on it. It was more of...
We didn't. Once we found the one, we found it.
I mean, just the actual decision of going through with the entire process of you saying, yes, I'm taking this job.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, well, are you sure? Well, maybe. It was like, if you get this job, you want it. And you're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, we'll make it work. That seems hilariously calm for me to say it like that. I'm not really exaggerating or downplaying the process. Like,
you were really calm.
We had definitely deep and long conversations about, is this a good choice for us? And it was kind of, I don't think we're going to be able to know unless we'd say yes. If we say no, we'll never know. If we say yes, at least we'll know if it was a good decision or a bad decision.
Right.
So for me, saying no to it, that was a line of thinking I didn't want to continue to have of playing it safe. I'm usually pretty reserved though when it comes to risk.
Right.
We aren't being flippant about the decision.
No.
But the way that I would normally hesitate and push off making a decision because I'm afraid of how it may play out, that didn't come into play with this.
You know, one thing that's coming to mind is starting the podcast. For me, we had talked about starting a podcast maybe a year. Was it a year before we actually did it, or 6 months?
Probably, at least. It would come up every now and then. Like, you know, when you're having like a discussion with somebody, like let's say it's about like where you want to go eat, and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure, and then somebody finally says, well, I kind of feel like a burger, but they say it so quiet you barely hear it, and you're like, what? And they're like, nothing. It's like, that's what it felt like bringing up like the idea of having a podcast or creating one. Like I might have said it like that, where I'm like, yeah, I kind of feel like having a podcast, and you'd be like, what? I'm like, nothing, and say anything. You're like, are you sure?
You're like, yeah.
It was one of those things where it's like, I feel like I want to try this, but oh no, like, who am I? Right? That comes up. Who am I to do that?
Right.
So I think it was quite a while. And then once we even started to record, it took like another 6 months before I even published one. So,
well, and it took a while too for me to realize, because at first I'm like, okay, this is great. You're going to talk about making things.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to talk about guitars and the deck and creating digital things.
Right. Take a drink of whatever you're drinking every time we mention the deck. I try not to mention the deck because it seems like I talk about it. It's every
a big project.
It's every yeah. So I mean, I could have talked about that as something I was afraid to start, or afraid to do. So anyway.
But honestly, and I thought, okay, well, I'll talk about canning and gardening.
Yeah.
And crafting and puzzling. I can't remember what episode it was. It might, and these are probably ones that are still in the vault somewhere that we've not released.
Maybe. There's maybe one or two that have never been released.
Yeah.
Even the early ones, you can tell that we weren't
comfortable.
You definitely thought that's what we were going to be talking about. And I was definitely like, this is not sustainable. Nobody wants to listen to you talk about gardening every episode.
Oh, but I mean, I'd listen to me talk about gardening.
I know. There's definitely...
My sister might.
There's definitely an audience for it. I don't mean... I think it's great that you like gardening. It pretty quickly, within a month of recording, you started getting more comfortable opening up and realizing like, oh, I can talk about things that I'm actually experiencing beyond crafting.
Well, and things that I'm thinking about or hard experiences that I've had and learned from. But I remember sitting here, and I think I've always been on this side of your studio.
Yeah, I keep you over there.
Yeah.
You can't get caught in like all the wires over here.
I remember looking at you a couple times, and you'd ask me a question, and I'd be like just staring at you like, why did you do that? Because I'm like, you know what the answer is, and I don't want to say that.
Oh,
And
I want to know what that is now.
No, not even. I can't even remember. It was probably just something about, well, was there a time at work you felt like an imposter? And I'm like, how dare you ask me? I don't want to talk about anything personal like that.
If I talk about that, everybody will know I am an imposter.
And I've been
That's
found
the point.
out.
The point is we're all imposters.
Right.
We just don't talk about it.
Yeah. But like looking back, and just because of my natural, just keep going, keep leaning in, take risks, you can do this. It took a while to evolve, but I do think that at the outset, it felt this is going to be hard. But there was a moment that it just clicked and turned for me that it is hard to talk about some of my previous work experiences and lessons I learned in leadership. And at the same time, there's a reason that it's important for me to do that, because I feel like I can help by sharing my story, help other people. Perhaps that is why doing that hard thing is the right thing to do.
That's something we realized a while ago, and it can be kind of annoying. But then you put your big kid pants on and you do it.
Yeah.
And then you feel better. Like, okay, that
Mhm.
wasn't so hard. Or that was pretty hard, but I'm glad I did it. Like, I don't want that to sound self-important or righteous, but it feels good to make good decisions. And that's not a value judgment. That's I did the thing to the best of my ability, and it's going to turn out how it's going to turn out, but at least I didn't hold back. You know, I kissed the girl and she's mine.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, you can cut all this out.
Okay. Probably not going to.
Well, we'll see.
If you say that, I don't want to cut it out.
You probably don't want to.
Put it behind a paywall.
Put it behind the paywall. The other memory I have that I'm interpreting as being hard, that meant it was like the thing to do, was you proposing to me.
Oh.
Possibly.
Was that hard for you?
It wasn't hard for me.
Oh, maybe for me?
For you.
Oh.
And so I didn't want to say it because I'm like, I'm maybe interpreting that. But I remember sitting there like, I don't know if he's going to ask me.
Like just ever? Like in general, or that night?
No, that night.
You didn't know that was coming, did you?
I didn't necessarily know, but I had an idea it might.
You thought that was hard for me.
Possibly.
It was not hard for me.
It wasn't?
No.
Oh.
It had been in the works for months.
Okay.
Of me trying to scheme and plot how to get the ring and think of like where and when. Like that's the hardest thing for me, is when and where.
Yeah.
But the decision to do it was one of the easiest decisions I've ever made.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, that's because you don't think highly of me, apparently.
No. That's not true.
I know. Way back then, I was basically a child.
Yeah.
You were ready before I realized we were ready.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. I think that's maybe more of what was maybe in your head. And you internalized that as it being difficult for me, meaning I wasn't sure? Is that what you were thinking? Or what?
No, I thought you were sure. I think I sensed that maybe it was hard to figure out, where should I ask her? How should I ask her? Those sort of things.
The how to ask you was probably more daunting because I wanted it to be special.
Yeah, it was.
But there was no, this is hard, I'm not going to do it. It was, this is hard, how am I going to do it? And that might have been one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm going to do the best I can, and good enough is good enough, because the point isn't how I say it, it's that I'm saying it.
Yeah.
I love you. I want to be with you. Let's build a life together, right? Let's commit.
Yeah.
That's not what I said to you, but that's what it means, right? Like that wasn't that wasn't my engagement speech to you. It was more of, I love you. Would you put up with me for the rest of your life kind of thing? I didn't know. I'm sure
You
I didn't
didn't
even
say
say
that.
I know. But like, yeah, I don't know if I put that much thought into the perfect special place, but I thought it was a nice place. I
It's
thought it
beautiful.
was, just by the water, and like maybe I should have put more thought into it. I don't know.
Now you're like, should I have done this? Should I have done that?
I don't remember not putting thought into it.
No, I thought you.
I don't know.
Now I have you second guessing. No, I think maybe I assumed it was hard, probably because, like, looking back, I sense maybe the logistics you were thinking about
Yeah.
a little bit. And maybe I did connect that, like, oh, maybe this is hard for him to ask.
I mean, the hardest thing was probably, how do I not let her accidentally know I'm going to do this before I do it? I wanted it to be a surprise and to be special. That's probably where most of my effort went into. Don't let her see that there's a ring box in my pocket.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm not going to do it in the middle of a busy restaurant.
I'm glad you didn't.
Not going to make a scene. It's for you and me, and I want it to feel special, intimate, a moment for us.
Yeah.
That's probably the most I've thought about that in almost 20 years.
Yeah, probably.
So, I don't know.
It's those little moments. It just makes me smile to know that the decision wasn't hard for you. I was listening to a podcast and talking about doing hard things with Jill Angie. She has a podcast, Not Your Average Runner, for runners who are all body shapes and sizes. She was saying that I don't like to think that I can do hard things. Why do the things have to be hard? Why can't we just reframe that and think about, why am I saying the things are hard? And I thought that was interesting. It does add a little bit of that mental heaviness when you name something as being quote unquote hard. I thought that was just an interesting way, like, I can do hard things, but maybe I don't need to call them hard things. Maybe that would help if they were just things that I'm doing.
I get what you're saying. I get what they're saying. And I instantly want to push back and kind of be like, right, but if you don't admit when something's hard, you might end up pretty sad and not understanding that it's okay, it's not working out, because that's hard what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I think I get the sentiment. I think I said, like, let's not be dramatic about this the other day about creativity being messy. That was it. And my first reaction was like, well, yeah, like, let's not be dramatic here. It's okay if it's a little messy. It's okay if it's a little hard. Do we need to suffer for our art? Not necessarily. Like, why? Like, let's go beyond that trope, please. Like, it's hard enough. Let's not dwell on it being hard, maybe, is what I would take away from that. But yeah, I don't want to be unaware of the load I'm carrying, though, either.
Right.
Like, I'm not, like, upset at that idea, but focusing on doing the hard things and being extreme and, like, relishing the fact that I do hard things might not be helpful, but also ignoring the fact that it's hard is probably not helpful either.
Right.
Like, let's just be even keel here.
Yeah.
Most pragmatic answer ever.
That's fair.
Of course, easy to say when I'm not in a situation that's hard.
That is true. Very true.
I think it's good to inspect things like that. So I appreciate her saying that.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. I'm looking at you, and I know we were talking about hard things just now, but I keep going back to you proposing, you walking in the door and telling me you had a good time. Like those moments. Like, remember, like the first time you walked in and said, I had a really nice time this night,
Oh, yeah.
and that was hard to do, you
Yeah.
said, but you knew it was the right thing to do.
Well, I mean, it was basically me saying like, hey, Laura, I like you,
Yeah.
you know?
I'm like, but do you like me?
Yeah. Like, I think I like you.
Aw. I might like you too. You getting shy?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just thinking of those moments in our relationship and how each of those moments have helped us or helped me feel like I have the best life. I had a little postcard that was down here. It was one of the cards I pulled out of a deck one time.
Oh, you left it down here.
I left it down
so
here.
I confiscated it because I want to put it up somewhere.
You did. I think I'm going to have you say it.
It's like an affirmation deck kind of thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so it's got cool little like astronaut graphic on it. I should take a picture of it and put it with the post.
Oh, there you go.
It says, "I lead the best fucking life ever."
Yeah.
I think it was in like one of your books or something.
Yeah, I was
And
using
I'm
it
like,
as a bookmark.
Well, she left it and went back to Green Bay without it, so I might confiscate it and put it up somewhere in my room.
Yeah.
So it's over here by my side of the studio.
It's a pretty amazing card.
Yeah.
So I keep going back to kind of those key moments in our relationship and being like, yeah, those are the things. And do you think by doing those, well, it's not a great example because the proposal wasn't a hard thing.
At a certain point, there needs to be a full sentence.
I know.
So I can edit. I'm like, you're starting 4 different thoughts here. What do you want to say?
Well, I'm just trying to wrap it, like bring it back.
Me being sure that I wanted to propose to you doesn't mean it wasn't hard.
Okay.
Like, what if you said no?
That's
right.
Yeah.
What if you said, it took you so long, you're dragging your feet, I don't know if I want to be with you. Like, there were probably thoughts of you maybe not accepting me, right? We've met before, right? You know, my inner monologue can be less than bright.
Yeah.
There was some fear involved of being accepted, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But that was, almost 20 years ago. So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
So when you're starting a new relationship right?
What's that like?
No, well, I don't know. It's been a while.
Keep going.
No, I was just going to say, when you tell someone you like them, right? Like you did all those years ago.
About this?
I'm just saying, or when you ask someone to marry you, that you love them and you want to do life with them.
Yeah.
Do you feel like in those moments, those are ways like, okay, this is one thing I'm doing that might be hard, but it is also hopefully going to lead me to lead my best life?
Yeah, it's an inflection point.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way I think about it. So when I come to an inflection point like that, where I get that feeling of, oh, I have to make this decision, and my gut and my head are telling me the decision to make, and my head's like, this is what you ought to do, even though part of me is like, that's hard. I tend to do it because I want to be the kind of person that is willing to find out if it's going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have the regret of not trying.
Yeah.
In those instances, that's what kind of helps me jump off that cliff and do a cannonball, right? It doesn't have to be, most of the time, when we're talking about making a hard decision, it doesn't feel that heavy. It's more of, I gotta call the guy about the thing, and it's gonna take 15, 20 minutes. I really don't want to do it because it's not fun sitting on the phone, not sure if they're actually going to help me. That's generally what it is.
Mm.
But those are great ways to build up the skill to realize, oh, when it really matters, a key inflection point that's going to change the trajectory of your life, asking somebody to be your partner, taking a job that's going to change your living situation or
Career path.
Yeah. It seems really big, but like the Not Your Average Runner said, like, hey, let's not focus on the fact that it's hard. How about we simply do the thing?
Yep.
And like I like to say, let's not be so dramatic. let's save that for our writing or our poetry, write a song.
Yeah. Taking some of the drama out, not being too high, not being too low.
Yeah.
That can really help.
And I say all that because I know I need work on it. Like,
yeah,
emotions are there to tell us something.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to be felt, but
yeah, feel your feelings, people.
Yeah, but also, use tools to help you respond to them.
Yeah,
in a healthy way, right? Like they don't need to rule me. They need to inform me.
Yeah.
Anyway, not trying to get all telling people how to do this or that. Yeah.
We're talking about making hard decisions, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes a decision can also be not a decision for a yes, but a decision for a no. You were talking a little bit. There's a book coming out by Tim Ferriss that's called what?
I think it's going to be called The Book of No.
The Book of No?
That's at least the working title. I'm pretty excited about it. I like his interviews. I like his podcast. I like his books. But yeah, he sent out additional newsletter with a couple sections from it or kind of how it started yeah.
So I think that idea, and I don't know if it's going to align with this, and I think Seth Godin talks about this, I'm pretty sure Gary Vee talks about this, but you have to be really clear about what you're saying yes to and what you're not saying yes to.
Which is a way of saying no?
Yes.
You're saying yes and what you're saying no to.
Yes,
Maybe
there we go.
That?
That's more clear. Yeah. So what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to, because sometimes the no's are very, very important to make sure that you have room for the things that are going to help you really build out your life the way you want it to be. Also, a lot of people are going to ask you to do a lot of things. And if you're going to put your time and energy into something you've said yes to, I find that it feels better to me if what I say yes to, I'm doing from a place of genuine yes and not just because I feel like I have an obligation to say yes. It's taken me a while to get there, but I think a genuine yes and not a yes and like I have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's lighter for me mentally to know that I'm coming from a genuine place of yes when I say yes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss's new book, the snippet that he sent out, hits home with that of getting rid of that people pleaser, that you don't deserve to have all of your energy taken from you and given to all these other things without realizing what it's doing to you, kind of thing is how I think of it. And that's going to be some interesting tools I think that I'm going to get when that comes out, because we're raised to be helpful, right? And to want to help. We want to help, right?
Yeah.
But at what expense? It's the most precious resource we have is our time.
Right.
So you have to protect it in a way. And so getting to the point where you can say no without feeling guilty is an amazing skill, I think.
Yeah.
I probably need to develop that. But I am developing it, and I have. It brings up maybe the idea of who's in charge of my schedule, kind of thing. Or do you want your email telling you where and when to show up, or do you want to be the one deciding where and when you're going to show up? Saying yes to everything just feels like you're never going to get to inbox 0 kind of thing. Like I get a little...
What's inbox 0?
Yeah, exactly. You have no idea.
Sorry.
50,000 unread emails. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And multiple accounts.
Benevolent chaos over there.
Yeah. Yeah. I did. Someday I will have a good inbox management, and I will live to tell the tale.
When all the servers crash, you'll have no email.
Oh no. No, I was working on decluttering it. Still got some work to do. What it all comes back to, for me, is each of us are in charge of cultivating the life that we want, and how we do that matters. What we say yes to, what we say no to, whether I feel like I can go after and create my best life, if it's intrinsic and just something that's baked into you, or if you need more of a nudge and kind of reminder to give yourself that permission to really design and lead your own life. I think the bottom line is we all can go for it and get after it. You get to create the life you want.
Yeah, you get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm feeling an urge to want to reread Eat, Pray, Love.
There you go. Just start with Big Magic.
Okay, I'll start with Big Magic,
It's a
but
quick,
I do want
quick
to.
listen.
I do want to reread Eat, Pray, Love. It's been a while, and I remember just walking away going, I want to get after it. Don't worry, I'm not going to like jump on a plane to Italy, hon.
I want to travel.
Well, I do want to travel.
Sure, that's why you liked it.
I do want to travel and explore and have adventures, but I want you by my side when I do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's wrap it up.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.